specialmente a coloro che soffrono. Oggi, il giorno della supplica alla Madonna di Pompei. Nostra Madre Maria vuole sempre camminare con noi, stare vicino, aiutarci con la sua intercessione e il suo amore. Allora vorrei pregare insieme a voi. Preghiamo insieme per questa nuova missione, però per tutta la Chiesa, per la pace nel mondo, e chiediamo questa grazia speciale di Maria, nostra Madre. Ave Maria, piena di grazia, il Signore è con te. Tu sei benedetta fra le donne e benedetto il frutto del tuo seno, Gesù. Santa Maria, Madre di Dio, prega per noi peccatori, adesso e nell'ora della nostra morte. Amen.
Il Santo Padre Leone, la sua benedizione a mezzo della radio, della televisione e delle altre tecnologie di comunicazione, concede l'indulgenza plenaria nella forma stabilita dalla Chiesa. Preghiamo Dio Onnipotente perché conservi a lungo il Papa a guida della Chiesa e conceda pace e unità alla Chiesa in tutto il mondo.
Sancti Apostoli Petrus et Paulus, de quorum potestate et auctoritate confidimus, ipsi intercedat pro nobis ad Dominum. Amen. Precibus et meritis Beate Mariae semper Virginis, Beati Michaelis Arcangeli, Beati Ioannis Baptiste, et Sanctorum Apostolorum Petri et Pauli et omnium Sanctorum. Misereatur vestri omnipotens Deus, et dimissis omnibus peccatis vestris, perducat vos Iesus Christus ad vitam aeternam. Amen. Indulgentiam, absolutionem et remissionem omnium peccatorum vestrorum, spatium vere et fructuose penitentiae, cor semper penitens, et emendationem vitae, gratiam et consolationem Sancti Spiritus, et finalem perseverantiam in bonis operibus tribuat vobis omnipotens et misericors Dominus. Amen. Et benedictio Dei omnipotentis, Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti descendat super vos et maniat semper.
Come back to the Associated Press live stream on the Conclave on the day that Pope Leo XIV, the first American Pope, was elected. We got cut off just before in our live stream. This is Giovanna Dell'Orto with the AP's religion team standing outside the Vatican, and we got cut off because Pope Leo XIV came out and started his speech. We're back now with some details about the very first speech that the new Pope has given to the world, to an absolutely full St. Peter's Square behind me. And his first words were what many Catholics have been telling us for the last days and time since Pope Francis passed that they wanted to hear. It was a message of peace, a message of unity, a message of dialogue. His first words were, "Peace be with you," delivered with a smile that we have not seen on the very solemn faces of the cardinals as they walked into the Sistine Chapel to elect the new Pope just yesterday, just a little over 24 hours ago. Pope Leo XIV was known as Cardinal Robert Prevost of Chicago. He's an American missionary to Peru. He held different roles in that Latin American country, including bishop. He's fluent in Spanish, and in fact tonight he switched from Italian into Spanish. He was also chosen a couple of years ago by Pope Francis to come to Rome and to lead the very powerful office for bishops, a position again that might sound insiderish, but made him a very well-known quantity within the Roman clergy and the Roman Curia. As I said, the crowd behind me, it just absolutely exploded with cheers. They've been waving flags. We've seen people crying. And we have noticed many of the cardinals, including former Cardinal Prevost, now Pope Leo XIV, smiling broadly as this announcement has been made. The crowds are now continuing to mill. There's a very festive atmosphere. There are lots of flags around. So it's a very, very special moment for the world's 1.4 billion Catholics and for everybody else who is waiting to see what more they can find out about the line of the next papacy. One thing that is relevant to bring up perhaps is that there were a lot of expectations about where the new Pope was going to be from. Remember, Pope Francis was the first Latin American Pope, and now we have the first American Pope. So let me tell you a little bit more about him. Again, he's 69 years old. He belonged to the order, and in fact was eventually the Superior General, or the Order of St. Augustine, which is named after one of the most famous and important figures, St. Augustine, in Catholic theology. The name that he has chosen for himself, Leo XIV, is also in line with a lot of different popes throughout history. He has chosen, in that sense, a more traditional name that Francis did, who was the first pope named Francis. A couple of other things. Again, he was the head of the office of bishops for the Vatican. That means that he was in charge of literally vetting all bishop nominations from around the world, a very global, if you will, presence, something in line with his experience in Latin America as a missionary. It is also, as I said, really remarkable to see the very broad smile. So let me recap these very hectic last 24 hours for you. Prevost, of course, was one of the 133 cardinal electors who yesterday afternoon around 4 p.m. in a very solemn ceremony walked into the Sistine Chapel, which is just to the right of St. Peter's Basilica, where he has just appeared, and they started voting to choose the successor to Pope Francis. It's been a relatively quick conclave, as I said, just a little over 24 hours. Several rounds of voting. We had black smoke last night, signifying that nobody had been chosen. We had black smoke around midday, signifying again that nobody was chosen. And then finally, white smoke. This afternoon, coming out around 6 p.m. local time here in Rome, a beautiful spring afternoon and evening, blue sky, and this white smoke just really took off in the sky, like the little wisp of clouds that we've been seeing all day. And a very, very festive cheer came out of the entire crowd. People have been streaming to reach St. Peter's Square. And let me remind you just very briefly why it is called St. Peter's Square and St. Peter's Basilica. This is because Pope Leo XIV, Robert Prevost of Chicago, is now not just the successor to Pope Francis, he is the successor of Peter, the first pope the disciple of Jesus, whom Jesus chose, according to the Gospels, to be the leader of the church, the very rock on which the church has been founded. We're going to be hearing a lot more about the Pope, probably not from him tonight. Let me tell you what we expect to see over the next few days. There will be his first Mass celebrated here at St. Peter's Square. We obviously don't know the details yet, but we will continue to bring you updates. So please continue to follow both our live coverage and the latest news on apnews.com, as well as our live blog that is up. We have a large team.